Hi, welcome to Ready, Set, Grow. I'm Kathy from Sunset Flowerland and Greenhouses, and today we're going to do a program on patio planters. And you can do all different kinds of planters on your patio. And my expertise here is vegetables. So we're going to start with some vegetable planters that would be beautiful on your deck, and you just step out the kitchen door and harvest your vegetables and go in and eat them fresh, which is just the best. So later in the show, Rachel will join us, and she's going to do ornamentals so that you can have the beautiful flowers on your deck along with the vegetables. And you need to have the flowers with the veggies because that's what attracts the bees. How can you have veggies without bees pollinating your veggies? So you want to mix both, and we're going to do both in this program. I have this fiber pot, which is specially made to have the air circulating through and the water coming out, excess water coming out, so you don't get a soggy soil in here, which is good for vegetables and ornamentals, the flowering plants, but it's kind of more conducive to vegetables to me. So we're going to start with the veggies in this pot. Now, if you really, really wanted to do something fancy, you can grow your vegetables in a fancy pot. You could get a beautiful pot, but the size on almost everything I'm going to be doing today and most of your veggies is at least a 5-gallon pail of soil. They need that much to grow. So we're going to start with potatoes, and we'll be doing different ones. We're going to do potatoes, cucumbers, tomatoes, and peppers. And we're going to start with the potatoes, and you want to have, I've got it, maybe quarter of the way with the soil in the bottom, because when you put your potato in, you want it to have place for the roots to go. And I've got some potatoes here, and some I've cut up ahead. I'm just going to dump them in kind of here. Now a potato has to have an eye. This is the eye of the potato, and you've got to have at least one eye for every piece that you put in your planter. Now you really don't want to use potatoes from the grocery store. You want to use seed potatoes, which we have seed potatoes bags, and you can pick them up most anywhere, because the potatoes in the grocery store have been treated with a chemical to keep it from sprouting. Because if they didn't, all the potatoes in the grocery store would be sprouting and have this, and people don't want that. So when you're cutting up your potatoes, I got one here with one eye, and I was putting him here, and this one I'm going to cut. I got an eye there. Oh, it hurts. Poor little potato, but he's okay. See, he's got a nice eye. Oh, I got a bad spot on it, so I'm going to cut that off. There's a little eye. He's ready to grow. He'll go right in there. Oh, look, here's another nice eye. Look at that eye. So another nice eye. Put him right there. And we got a spot here, another nice eye. Oh, look, there's a bad spot. We're not even going to use him. We don't want to use him. Okay, but we have lots of potatoes here, all cut up and ready to be placed. There's the eye. Put one in there, and one in there, and one in here. And we just place them around in here. Now, if you were planting in your garden potatoes rather than in this planter, you would want to make a trough. They talk about hills of potatoes, but it's the hill is in the end, not in the beginning. You want a little trough. So you dig out a little trough, and you would do the exact same thing, cut your potatoes and lay them in just about this spacing. That's good. And now we're going to put a layer of soil, about as much, maybe about as much as the potato is. So about that much on top of this. So we'll be getting that in a second. So when you put them in your garden, in that little trench, you'd put a little bit of soil. And as the potato grows, he's going to start growing right away. So probably within a week, they're going to be poking up out of that little bit of soil I'm putting on top. And you want to put more soil on. So in your garden, you would pile it up a little higher. And in this pot, I'll put the soil, maybe halfway. Wait for them to grow again, and I'm gonna add more soil until I hit almost to the top. I got to make sure I leave room at the top to put water in, because you're going to have to keep it watered. And you just keep doing that until you get to the top, and let them grow all summer. In the garden, you will keep hilling them until you haven't got any soil left to hill. You've got to have just keep piling it up there. When you run out of soil, your hill is as high as it's going to be. The higher you can get the hill, the more potatoes you're going to get. Well, in this nice pot, I got lots of soil, and I'm going to have tons of potatoes. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more fun, especially for children, than treasure hunting for potatoes and then taking it in and cook it for dinner right away. That is just the best. I want to put some on top here so you can see what it's going to look like, and then we'll go on to our next little planter. Okay, here we come. I've got some really good soil. Now this soil is potting soil. You want to use a potting soil. You don't want to just go get some dirt somewhere. You really want to use a potting soil. You're going to get better production from your potatoes. And I'm just covering them all up just so that you don't see anything. You just want to have them all covered. There, they're all covered. Water it in and wait for the potatoes to sprout. Once you see those little green sprouts, go get another pot of potting soil and dump it in until you get almost to the top. This potting soil that I happen to be using today has fertilizer in it, which is good for 30 days. You want to read your package of what you get for potting soil. If there's no fertilizer in it, then you want to start fertilizing right away. Most potting soils will tell you it has fertilizer for a certain period of time. So just follow directions on that package, and you will have tons of potatoes to dig in the fall. We're going to use the same pot because this is such a perfect pot. I have a whole row of these at home just off my deck because they're not the most beautiful, but they're the best for the veggie to grow. So I'm going to just use the same one. But at home I have all these pots, so I'm just going to pull these potatoes out. And we're going to, because you don't want to plant potatoes and these other things with them. You want this whole pot to be potatoes. And when we do the next pot will be a cucumber. How's that? And you don't want potatoes in your cucumbers. Your cucumber wants this whole space all by himself. So, all right, potatoes are out. And I'm going to go and fill this pot so it's about right up to here with soil, and we'll start with the cucumbers. We have a whole pot of soil now, a good potting soil with fertilizer and ready to grow. And I'm going to put my cucumber in next. This is a bush cucumber. If you buy a bush tomato, a bush cucumber, a bush squash, a bush pumpkin, bush means it was bred to grow in a container. It doesn't need that whole garden area. So I have a bush cucumber. I'm not about to grow bush pumpkins on my deck, but maybe somebody would want a bush pumpkin. But when you get your cucumber or whatever, and you can get them two ways. You can get them in these peat pots, or you can just, sometimes people buy them in 6-packs and there's no peat pot and they would just lift it out of the 6-pack. But if you're doing it in the peat pot, we like this way best because it doesn't disturb the soil in any way. You would peel back. First of all, you'd want to soak this in water, and I forgot to bring a pot out, but anyway, you'd soak this in water for about 10 minutes, get that peat pot nice and wet. Then you're going to rip it back so that this does not act like a wick. If I planted it and it was at the top, so and that top was sticking up, it would act like a wick and it would dry this peat pot out, and that's the last thing we want. We want that peat pot to be nice and moist all the time. Now this is just peat moss, so I'm going to put it right in my soil. That's good stuff. Now the top of this soil needs to be at the top of your pot. If you planted it really deep like this, your cucumber will be dead when you get up in the morning. You've got to have it exactly the top here at the top here, so that that's just barely covering. And then just water, fertilize, and it doesn't matter what you use for fertilizer, follow the directions on the package. And some have 10-10-10 is good, 5-10-10. These are all just good garden vegetable fertilizers. And the first number promotes green growth. The second number, like on 5-10-10, the second number, the second 10, or the first 10, the middle number is for blossoms. Now, I want blossoms on my cucumber. And so I definitely want to make sure I have a good high middle number. The last number is for roots. And so if you did in the beginning want to do one with the last high number, that would be good, but that isn't necessary as the whole summer goes along, because this will make beautiful roots. So I am ready now. I'm going to have potatoes and cucumbers, and next let's do peppers. I love peppers. And you could do different kinds. I just happen to have, we're going to take him out. We'll put him in there. I happen to have Oh, these are Cal Wonders. This is a very old heirloom pepper. I like Ace. I do like the hybrid ones better because they do produce better. But you know, Cal Wonder is a good heirloom pepper. And so anyway, you would want to lift 3. You could put 3 in this pot. So I got enough here for 2 pots. But we're only going to do 1 today. And peppers are the same. You need to have the top of the soil at the top of the pot. Now, if I had just planted 1 pepper right in the middle, he's lonely. Peppers are social. I just don't understand why or how, but an old market gardener 20 years ago told me that peppers have to touch. Now, you don't want them to touch when you plant them, but when they get mature, and each pepper is going to get a good-sized bush like this, when they're mature, they need to touch. Once they touch, they will start producing. So I'm going to put 3 in here. 4 I think is too many for this size pot. So I'm going to put 1 there. The top of the soil is going to be the top up here, because if I plant them really deep like that, they're going to die. They got to have the top of the soil. And whatever vegetable fertilizer you're using on your cucumber, just move right over and give your peppers some after about 30 days. The next one we're going to plant is tomatoes. And tomatoes are a little bit different. Tomatoes, everything I've told you about tomatoes is, everything I've told you about the other veggies you want to forget. Tomato, the deeper you plant it, the better root system you're going to have. So you want to take this off and go as deep as you can. Bye, little tomato. And there he is. So this is a sun sugar tomato, a cherry, sweet. Now this is, you know, tomatoes need staking. This one is going to need to have a lot of staking. It's going to grow 6 feet or more. So I put this one on the ground below my deck, put one of the tomato stakes on it, and then tie the tomato cage to the deck so that I'm picking the tomatoes off my deck, but it is stabilized with the tomato cage tied to the posts on my deck. Now, that is a sun sugar. I absolutely love them. I have right here a Bush Champion. This is bush, bred to grow in a pot. Bury them deep. And this one you don't need to stake. The cage would be, tomato cage would be plenty. But he is a bush. Bush is the important word when you're growing in containers. Now, tomatoes have a couple special needs. If they are growing, when they start growing and start having tomatoes on them, they have to have consistent watering. If you take off for a week and don't water it for a week, you're going to get what they call blossom end rot. And that's the end of your beautiful little tomato that's growing, turns all rotten and it's no good. So that is caused by inconsistent watering. So if you go away, you're going to have somebody come. And the other one is they're very high in calcium. They need to have high calcium, just like ladies. And this is a good tomato food just for tomatoes. It has extra calcium in it. Now on the back it says the directions. You want to read the directions. Now I know this soil has enough fertilizer for 30 days. So in 30 days, apply tomato tone 14 days after planting. Well, I'm going to go 30 because it has some in it. And it says feeding twice each month during the growing season. And the rate in a single plant is 3 teaspoons, and you just do a single row right around it. But follow these directions. If you put 6 teaspoons in, you're going to burn it. If you put 1 teaspoon in, it's not enough. They want you to have perfect luck with this fertilizer. They're going to tell you how the best way to do it is. And those are my 4 pots I have on my deck of veggies. Now we need Rachel, who is very artistic and is going to show us how to do some beautiful ornamentals.
Hello, I'm Rachel from Sunset Greenhouses, and today we're going to be working on some patio planters to add a little color to wherever you need some spice, whether it's shady spot or a sunny spot. There's a lot of plants to accommodate that, and all based on what you prefer, we can make something special the way you like it. Let's see. So I'm going to start, of course, with the pot that you like. You want to find something that suits you, but mostly the plants are going to cover the pot. You just need something large enough that can hold anywhere from 4 to several plants. The bigger the plant, though, the less it's going to fit in the container. So I have some really beautiful specimens here at a 4-inch pot. I think we can get about 5 of them for something beautiful and instantly tantalizing for your front step. So major part of it is the soil, and there is a lot of soil that goes into a large pot. This here is about a size 10 inch, but you can help minimize the weight, but also the amount of watering with a little bit of packing peanuts. By putting that in the bottom of their pot, that's going to allow the water to go through the soil and then drain a lot quicker out the bottom, keeping in mind though, if you don't want that water on your patio, you got to take it down onto the ground while you water, but it'll be a lot lighter to do so because it's not quite so full. Yeah, now we've got a full, nice, good soil. And there's lots to choose from, but it is important what you put in first because that's going to keep your plants growing for a few months anyway. And since this is the only fertilizer it's going to get except what you may give it, there's some options, and you always want to read what's going to be in your soil. You want a mixture of some organic material. You always want to make sure that there's a little bit of nitrogen, a little bit of the chemicals that are in there, but you don't want anything that's straight compost. That's going to be far too heavy. So always reading your labels to make sure that you got a nice light mixture. All-purpose potting soil works, but you can see all the different ingredients in here from perlite. There's the cocoa, there's coir, there's even a little bit of rice hulls in some. So making sure you get something that's going to allow for the drainage and be not too hard and heavy for your pots. Now we're going to start with my sun one. I have a lot of ingredients here, but it's based on what your preference is, whether it's colors, and again, if you're going for a sunny spot, you want the plants that will be able to tolerate the heat, and you'll have to control the water. You may check as many as twice a day, but watering first in the morning is always a good way to ensure that they'll be nice and watered for the hot day ahead. And again, since it's your preference of plants, you can just start by choosing the colors that appeal to you. Now, I'm a big fan of the pop, and you start with a palette and just kind of choose from there, not unlike painting a picture though. Some things to keep in mind though are the direction in which it's going to be viewed from. Is it going to be full circle? Is it going to be one-sided, or is it going to be next to your doorstep and you want to see a particular plant? That's the one you may want to put in the front. Of course, then you set the backdrop. You can get some beautiful height with different textures. Some plants even have an assortment of smells, and that may be something that interests you to bring into your doorstep. But just playing around to see what works best. Some great sunny spot plants are going to be your petunias. These here are Million Bells, which is a small version of a petunia. Of course, our big petunia here with the standard beautiful satellite style flowers. But you can also mix it up a little bit with some daisies. Daisies will tolerate full sun. These are sun biddens or bidens, but we call them a bidden here, and they will grow in a lot of different directions too, but tolerating that full sun. And as you can see, gardening is just playing, and it's really what works for you is how you're going to decide that last factor of what actually stays. But I always like to have a little bit of height for drama, and before you plant, go ahead and mix them around. See what's going to work where, and that way you're not planting and unplanting. But here we have what we call, this is a salvia. It's full sun again, and that's going to add a lot of height, a lot of drama. The hummingbirds love it. This is a beautiful blue color here, which I think accents this pot really well. And see how we like the looks of this contrast. Maybe we get a couple in there. Ooh, I think I'm starting to like this. But always want to do more contrast and have layers to your patios and your well, it's like a piece of artwork for sure. So you want those layers to draw you in, keep you moving around. Let's see. Other options to put in include some vines. And so we have the height. This is what you can call your thriller. It's the highlight of your planter and will definitely be the eye-catching drama. Then you have some filler plants, which you've got here. This is your third level. And I think I might like this better. See how that kind of, I think I might like that. Then your third aspect could be what we call the spillers. And that's going to spill down beautifully, adding, again, more drama and more texture amongst the bottom of your pot. Pull the eye through the whole piece. So I think it's kind of coming together nicely. And again, you can move your plants around, make them fit like any good gardener. This is a licorice vine, which, again, as a filler, works really well to just add a little pop of interest, some texture and some contrast, as I was saying. Now that you've got the composition that you like, I think I like that. I think that's going to work. Feel free to start planting your plants. Now, I try to keep them in the order that I've got them. I want to remember where they were, so I'm not going to put them back into my palette. That can be for another planter at another time. Simply squeeze in the pot to release the roots a little bit. And if you pull it out and you see more roots than soil, it's a good time to pot it up. This is going to love having a bigger pot, and it's going to grow in really nicely. Now you don't want to press it in, but just kind of firm it in nicely so that it stands up straight. It isn't going to knock over. I then displace the soil that's in there, make room for my next plant. Again, kind of squeeze in the pot a little bit, a little oomph comes right out. It's always a good idea too to break up the roots just a little bit. This is going to generate the roots to grow outside this little circle of the pot, and it will start moving around and ultimately is going to result in a much healthier, fuller plant that will last all season. Now, none of these need deadheading, which is a great aspect to have, especially for your full sun plants. And what that means is that these flowers, once they go by, don't need to be removed in order to have more flowers coming. That means you get to just enjoy your patio planter, just water it, fertilize it. You don't have to tend to it. But that's keeping in mind certain petunias do need deadheading, but you can find those plants that don't, and that will make it a lot easier for you to enjoy your patio planter. And again, we got some roots nice and gnarly in there. And you can turn the plant to face in a direction that's suitable for you. Believe it or not, there is a front and a back to plants. So you just find the most, there, I think I like that one. What's showing the most, what gives you the most display of those beautiful flowers and beautiful color. And again, you do want to leave a little bit of space in between the plants to allow them to grow. If you put them too close together, they will tend to choke each other out, which is not exactly it's not what we're going for. We want the really healthy, free-flowing, growing plants instead of jamming them all together. And already I think I've changed my mind, which is totally fine. A little bit more soil. And loosen the roots a little bit. There, the last one is always the most satisfying because it really brings the piece together. Add just a little bit more soil there to it. You don't want to push the soil down too hard. Again, the roots need some free moving, needs to be able to breathe and have a little bit of space. But you do want to allow a little bit of of space for the water as well. So not a completely full pot and not pressed down really hard, but enough to make them stand up in there. And I think I do want to put just a little extra right in the top. Patting it in like that is going to make sure that the soil gets in and around all the roots. You don't want any pockets around the roots of air because that's going to rot out the roots themselves. Although they want nice aerated soil, which is why you have the perlite, etc. in there, they still want to have completely covered by the soil. Yes. Now that you have this in, you want to make sure it's well watered. Now, watering in is going to be a little bit of a process, but you want to make sure all of the roots and all the soil is thoroughly saturated. So it will be coming out the bottom. You want to make sure you have good drainage and good holes in the bottom of your pot. If it is on a nice deck, you may want to move it off at this time, but give it a good drink, avoiding the flowers as best as possible, putting it right down into the soil so it's not splashing up. You want to fill the patio planter, the pot, once and let all the water drain down so you can't see it anymore. And then you want to go ahead and do that a second time. Make sure that not getting the soil or the mud on the outside, just waiting till it fills up and watching it slowly go down, getting on all those roots, mixing all those plants together. And then a third time, that third watering should be enough to saturate all of the dry soil that you got in there, and it should be enough to keep it at least a couple of days. You may want to check it tomorrow morning or the next day, make sure it's not dry, but you just gave it all kinds of good water and it will start growing from there.